I'm encouraging everyone to come in and find your tables and sit down. The program will begin promptly in 5 minutes. So come on in, find your tables, sit down, corral those people out in the lobby. Get them in here. There's coffee on the tables. We'll begin in just a few minutes. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I encourage you to come in, find your table captain, grab a seat. We're going to start in just a couple of minutes. So come in, sit down. Good morning. We're going to begin the program, so I ask you please to sit down and be quiet. I know it's so much fun though. All the greeting, all the meeting, all the excitement in the lobby. But we have many people also who are joining us online, and so we want to start on time. And Maggie, I think we're doing good. It says 8:02 up here. That was the plan, right? Thank you, everyone, for being so cooperative and sitting down. And please enjoy your breakfast and coffee and juice. Here we go. Good morning and welcome to the 8th Annual Fresh Energy Benefit Breakfast. Crash. That was an exclamation point. We're back in person, and it's wonderful to see so many people in the room and to know that there are many others joining us online. My name is Jackie Johnson, and I'm honored to serve as the chair of the board of directors at Fresh Energy and to join you here this morning. We're holding this event on ancestral Dakota lands overlooking the beautiful Mississippi River. The beauty and history of the external landscape reminds us of the importance of the land, the sacred quality of water, and the responsibility we all share in protecting these. For me, this gathering represents an interlude of hope during extraordinarily troubling world events. Thus, we are so grateful that you chose to spend your morning with Fresh Energy today in that spirit of not only hope, but also action. Thanks to those of you who made it in person. I know it's early. I backed out of my driveway and backed right into the curb. I think I'm not programmed for this. We think there are just shy of 600 people who are joining us in this room. And then I'd also like to thank our virtual guests for logging in this morning. We had nearly 150 people registered to view our program via YouTube live stream today. And so what do you think? Could we just give them a wave to welcome them this morning too? Woohoo! Nicely done. We are here today because we all care deeply about an equitable, clean energy future where everyone can thrive. Whether this is your first Fresh Energy event or you've been a friend of Fresh Energy for a while, we are so glad you're here. We have an exciting and fast-paced program for you this morning, and I hope that you will leave this event feeling like you learned something new, energized for the future, and motivated to take action. And if you're curious about what's in store, check out page 2 of your program for this morning's speaker and video order. I'll be back on stage at the very end of the program to dismiss you. I'd like to think that I perfected the role of convener and dismisser when I served as chancellor at the University of Minnesota Morris. And this isn't in my script, but I have to do a shameless plug here. If you've never visited Morris, Minnesota, you really need to. Yeah. It's an amazing place, a national leader in renewable energy, powered by wind, solar, and biomass. Research going on at the West Central Research and Outreach Center, a public liberal arts college that is also a Native American serving non-tribal institution. So I love the place, and you should go visit. Before we dive in, I'd like to acknowledge the many current state and local elected leaders registered to join us this morning, many of whom are here in person and some of whom are online. Patty Acom, Catherine Dalcani, Heather Edelson, Nick Frentz, Marion Green, Mitra Jalali, Mike Kratchmer, Jamie Long, Rena Moran, and Kim Norton. Let's just give them a big round of applause. Yeah. Thank you for being here with us. We are grateful for your service and public support of Minnesota's clean energy future. I'd also like to give a shout out to my fellow Fresh Energy Board members. They give of their time and expertise to support the work of Fresh Energy, and we are so grateful to them. And if you're a board member here, past or present, can you just give a wave at your table so we know who you are? And yes, let's applaud them as well. I believe that you can never clap too much, so I think it's a good thing. And then special recognition goes to Ted Kontag, our benefit breakfast event chair and board member, who has been instrumental in making this event a success. His leadership and dedication to giving back and helping the community to be generous and make a deeper impact is inspiring. Ted, can you just stand up for a minute? Woo! Thank you, Ted. Fresh Energy is celebrating more than 3 decades of driving high impact and innovative clean energy policies across Minnesota and the Midwest. And this morning, we're celebrating with our new executive director, Brenda Cassellius. She's right up here. You'll hear from her in just a few minutes. And I don't know about you, but at a time when young people are driving so much change for clean energy and climate, we're inspired to see so many students in the crowd today. Shout out to students from the Richfield Public Schools Green Team. Where are you? And also from the Academy of Holy Angels, students from there as well. Finally, I want to recognize the important partner organizations that Fresh Energy collaborates with daily and that help make our work possible. There are too many to name here, but know that we are grateful to you for your partnership. So now, on with the program. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Alan Gleckner, who is the Executive Lead of Policy and Programs at Fresh Energy. Alan has been on the team for a decade and guides Fresh Energy's programmatic work, helping to ensure that Fresh Energy sets and meets ambitious goals across all areas of our policy work. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you, Jackie. Hello and good morning. First off, I have to apologize for my voice. I went to the Twins game last night, which took a toll on me vocally and, more importantly, emotionally. As I was sopping up the last of my tears with my Homer hanky, I was reflecting on what a strong network of supporters Fresh Energy has. We are so grateful for each and every one of you. And I also want to extend a warm welcome to those of you who might be attending your very first Fresh Energy event. This morning, I have the honor of thanking the many businesses and individuals who sponsored and supported this event. Because of their generosity in underwriting our breakfast, all gifts today will go entirely to Fresh Energy's mission of shaping and driving bold policy solutions to achieve equitable, carbon-neutral economies. First, I'd like to thank our title sponsor, Parable Wealth Partners, a wealth management firm that centers purpose-driven values at the core of their work and investment strategy. Thank you, Parable. I'd also like to thank our Fair of the Future sponsors, Great River Energy and RAR. Great River Energy is a not-for-profit electric cooperative and is committed to providing affordable, reliable, cleaner energy to its members. RAR is a family-owned company that was built on a commitment to sustainability and is dedicated to supporting solutions for a clean energy economy. We are grateful for the partnership and support of our VIP meet and greet sponsors, Atomic Data, Ecolab, Enterprise Energy, Minnesota Power, and Xcel Energy. We are exceptionally grateful for all our sponsors. Without the additional support from our Clean Energy Champion and Friends of the Future sponsors, today's breakfast would not be possible. And we can't forget our table captains. You worked hard to bring everyone together for this moment. We are so grateful to all of you for taking the time to extend invitations to friends, families, colleagues, and neighbors so they could join us in creating a clean energy future for Minnesota and the Midwest. You are truly making an impact, bringing more passionate supporters into the fold. Finally, we have some match pool sponsors I'd like to acknowledge. Because of their generosity, every gift today of $250 or more will be matched dollar for dollar up to $115,000. Here's a chance to double your impact, so I challenge the room to max out this match. Also, a quick reminder that our Fair of the Future outside the ballroom will continue until 11 a.m. this morning. So if you don't have to hustle back to work, we hope you will join us in exploring it after our breakfast program. And you can check out your program for more information about vendors and exhibits. And so before I introduce our next speaker, we're going to watch a short message from our presenting sponsor, Parable Wealth Partners.
Wealth defined by finances alone is limiting. At Parable, we're expanding this story of wealth. Because true wealth is made of more than just dollars and cents. It's in the passions we nurture and grow, and the joy of sharing those gifts with the world. Let's discover a different story together, a story about wealth and all its expressions. Discover more at parablewealth.com.
This is Parable's fourth year of being a key sponsor for our benefit breakfast, and on behalf of the whole Fresh Energy team and board, I want to say thank you for your ongoing support and partnership. And now, I'm excited to share with you a message from our special guest, Stacey Abrams. You may know her as the former Georgia State Representative or from her work on issues like voting rights, environmental justice, health equity, and economic empowerment, or maybe from her new role at Rewiring America, a new nonprofit dedicated entirely to electrification. I can't think of a more impactful individual than Stacey Abrams, so you can imagine her making an appearance for us this morning is an incredible, incredible honor. After Stacey, Fresh Energy's new executive director, Brenda Casilius, will take the mic. With a background in education and administrative leadership, Brenda brings 3 decades of expertise in social justice, education, and meaningful public policy to Fresh Energy, and we are so fortunate to have her at the helm. Wow, okay, enough from me. Let's turn it over to these two changemakers.
At a moment of extreme weather events and what can sometimes feel like extreme denial, it's easy to believe that we can't get better done. It's easy to give up, or worse, to give in. But I'm here to tell you that we have the ability to create real change despite the naysayers, because the believers are just waiting for us to show up. Every time we as a society have faced challenges, when we band together and refuse to let the worst angels win, we make progress. And we do it by doing 3 things. First of all, we speak up. We tell the truth about what we see, but we also tell the truth about what we believe is possible. We paint a picture of what is capable when we do more together. When we are willing to speak up and not only give people the facts, but give people the vision, they feel compelled to do more. By speaking up, we create space for people to find their deeper selves and to do more for those they need to. Number 2, we show up. When we show up, that means not just saying here's what should happen, but actually doing the work. It's going beyond the keyboard and beyond the tweet. It's going into those communities and having those conversations. It's taking people to see what's possible, but also letting them know you see what's gone wrong. By showing up, We show people that we are in this together and we are in it for more. We speak up, we show up, but most importantly, we stand up. And standing up simply means making certain that we defend what we know to be right and we push back against what we know to be wrong. Working together, we can push against those forces that tell us to just accept that the end is nigh, to accept that we have done the most we can because we know better, whether it's through the success of the IRA or those small moments of change that we have seen in zoning laws or in NIMBYism or simply a person being willing to turn off the lights a little sooner than they meant to. When we stand together, when we stand up for what we believe, we create space for others to join us. So I encourage you to speak up, show up, and stand up. And together, we can get good done.
Thank you, Stacy. Wow, wasn't that inspiring? Such incredible advice. It goes without saying that we are absolutely overjoyed that Stacy Abrams would accept our invitation to connect with our guests this morning. We're excited to be part of an organization of supporters and partners who are getting good done, who are speaking up, who are showing up, and standing up. I'm blown away at how together we are making real change and taking action to build a clean future. And certainly Stacy is a tough act to follow. But before I start, I wanted to first give a couple of thank yous. I know Jackie did a ton of thank yous already, but it wouldn't be right if I didn't first thank the board chair, Jackie Johnson, for her incredible leadership. I'd also like to thank former and present board members, and also I would like to recognize Fresh Energy's founder, Michael Noble, who for 30 years led this incredible organization. Michael, would you please stand so we could recognize you? I'd also like to thank the Fresh Energy team, led by Maggie LaValle, Jillian, Lee, and Susan, Steve, Julia, the incredible communications team. If you wouldn't stand up, please. I know there's no place in this program for us to thank you, so I want to do it right now. And then I also want to thank my co-chair, Ted Kontag. Aren't you amazing, you and Parable Wealth Partners? Thank you so much. Well, good morning, and thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I'm Brenda Caselius. I'm the proud new executive director here, and I'm so excited to see all of your smiling faces this morning. I joined the Fresh Energy team in May, and since then, I have enjoyed learning from and collaborating with all of our amazing staff. It has been a whirlwind and actually a lot of fun too. I'm learning so much. Many of you know that I am new to clean energy movement, but I'm not new to driving meaningful change through policy. As Alan mentioned, I have spent the past 3 decades dedicated to the success of children, their families, and our communities, as a public school teacher, a superintendent, and your state commissioner of education. Increasingly, it has become clear to me that for children to succeed, they must also have a healthy planet in which to thrive. In fact, later in the program, you'll see that I had the honor of checking in with some bright young minds who care about environment they are growing up in, and are urging the adults in their lives to take urgent action, like Stacy said, speaking up, showing up, and standing up. I probably don't need to tell you that we are at a critical time in history. We're seeing and living the effects of climate change, which include more extreme weather events. July 2023 was the hottest ever recorded on the Earth. And scientists are calling September's warmer than average temperatures mind-blowing. This summer, our air quality was dangerously compromised by wildfires, and just 1 week ago, organizers had to cancel the Twin Cities Marathon in October because of this heat index. But one thing I've learned at Fresh Energy is that there's hope and bold and sound solutions, and that by working together, we can make real change and give our kids a better and healthier planet. It is so heartwarming to see all the passion, generosity, and dedication of our community and everyone in this room who are making a better world for all of us and for the generations to come. It is because of all of you and your many years of advocacy that the 2023 Minnesota legislative session will be remembered as the most impactful climate and clean energy session in Minnesota history. From passing the landmark 100% clean electricity law, which made Minnesota a pace setter and the state to watch for climate solutions and progress, to passing the State Competitiveness Fund, which ensures Minnesota can take full action of federal funding for energy and climate. You helped to establish Minnesota as a leader in America's clean economy future. And as you know, there are just a few of the major accomplishments from the legislative session. There was a lot to celebrate, and now, in addition to our core policy work, our team is laser focused on the implementation and accountability of these new laws, so that these policies and programs take effect quickly, correctly, equitably, and sustainably, while at the same time preparing for even more ambitious goals in the future. So let me say it again. Because of you, we can celebrate our victories and write a hopeful new chapter in our state's climate story. But we also know the work is urgent, and that even with this amazing progress, we still have so much more to do. We know that to prevent the worst impacts of climate change, we need to meet and exceed our state's greenhouse gas reduction goals. And thanks to your support and partnership, we are within striking distance for the first time ever. And you can count on Fresh Energy to continue our sharp focus on ensuring that our rapid transition to clean energy is done equitably and broadens the table of engagement for shared decision-making, and that we live into the spirit of Justice 40. Fresh Energy continues to rise to the challenge through fresh solutions, partnerships, and coalitions that deepen our reach and expand our impact. This is our shared work, which is reflective of your continued generosity and support. It is the foundation that will surely make the coming year one of the most transformative yet, helping to build future momentum. Thank you again for being here and for your loyal and passionate support of this work. And I welcome the opportunity to meet and get to know each of you. So please reach out anytime. But before I go, I want to share a new resource that the team developed. If you look into your bags, you'll see this wonderful little poster. It pulls out to be a poster. It has a QR code on it. I won't go through the whole thing, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because it's so useful. And back in my teaching days, we always used to say, it's great to be inspired, but even better to have something tangible you can take with you and learn from. So many of you know this already, but core to our work is what is called the energy transition, in which decarbonization plays a big role. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but we are all part of Minnesota's energy transition. And thanks to the Federal Inflation Reduction Act and the new Minnesota laws just passed, there are new incentives, tax credits, and rebates to help us kick our carbon out of our lives. If you're like me, getting a handle on what these new resources are can be a little tricky, which is why we've given you this handy pocket. So please scan your codes and then share the guide with a friend or neighbor. Spread the word so everyone can join us in this clean energy transition. And let's make this easy. Now back to the term decarbonization. If it is a new word for you or something you have heard but don't totally understand, you're going to love the video that we have next. And then after that, we will hear from our featured speaker, Ramaz Nam. Ramaz is a futurist with an eye toward climate tech, an author and a storyteller. Ramaz keeps his finger on the pulse of market trends in renewables, energy storage, electric transportation, and more. He is an international speaker on innovations in clean tech, and ambitious, actionable clean energy policies. We are honored that he could join us here to share his wisdom and inspire us today, and maybe give us a few tools we can use. Now onto the animated video. I hope you enjoy it.
Every aspect of our lives, including our health and our financial well-being, is impacted by the climate emergency. And we risk impacting future generations if we don't act now. The good news is, work is already underway to combat climate change right here at home. Fresh Energy has dedicated 3 decades to advancing equitable energy and climate solutions for Minnesota and the Midwest. By working together, we've made great progress in cleaning up how we generate electricity. We're moving off of coal and gas and onto carbon-free wind and solar. Now it's time for us to focus on transitioning everything else to be carbon neutral. This is called decarbonization. That means evolving how we get around our built environment, including how we heat and cool and cook in our homes, and how we construct future-ready buildings, and our industry and agriculture sectors, like how we manufacture our goods and materials and produce fertilizers. Decarbonizing these aspects of our lives doesn't just address the climate emergency. It creates jobs, supports healthy communities, and repairs systemic inequities. Historic federal and state investments are amping up these efforts, and Fresh Energy has a team of experts dedicated to meeting the challenge. Learn what you can do to help speed the energy transition and start decarbonizing today. Get involved at fresh-energy.org.
Hello there. My name is Ramez Naam. It's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you, Brenda, for that introduction, and thank you, Michael Noble, for bringing me here the first time in 2016, I think, and getting me to come back. So I'm an optimist who is very concerned about climate change. And what I'm going to talk about for the next little bit is the incredible progress that we're making, and yet the very substantial challenges that we still have. So I'm an investor in climate tech now. I didn't start off that way. I started off in tech, worked in software for quite a long time. I invest in climate technologies because they matter. You can invest in anything these days, but for me, this is one of the most vital challenges that humanity faces. It amplifies every other environmental challenge that we have. Climate change is something that you all know about, you know that it's real. This is temperatures over the last 130 years or so. We've warmed by about 1.2 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. And while we originally had a goal of staying below 2 degrees Celsius, now the bar is 1.5 degrees Celsius is where we'd like to stay. And as you heard, this summer has been the most anomalous summer ever on record in the last 100 and some years of measurements. July was the hottest month. September was the most anomalous month in terms of how much hotter it was than the norm that we would expect in this time. So you know the impacts of climate change, but one thing I want to emphasize is when I started in this field, 2010 or so, we thought of climate change as something that affected future generations. We thought it would be coming down the pipe, but now it's evident that it's here right now, whether it's the record fires, the smoke that you all had here, droughts, impacts on coral reefs, and so on. So this is no longer something we have the luxury to wait on. It's something that we have to address right now. The good news is this: we have made enormous progress. The hour is late. There's a lot more we have to do. We have to move faster, but things have changed tremendously. In 2010, we thought the world was on track for something between 4, 5, or 6 degrees Celsius of warming, up to 12 degrees Fahrenheit of warming. And that would be a truly apocalyptic level of warming. Agriculture could fail across large parts of the world, and so on. And while we haven't solved climate change, we have made enormous progress. This chart shows a range of estimates in the past. The top line is some estimates from the middle of the last decade. And what's happened over the last 2 years is we've had a slew of new academic papers that have looked at the pace of our decarbonization. How fast clean energy is getting cheap, especially, and they've updated our estimates of where we're heading to. And we're no longer heading, we think, for 4, 5, or 6 degrees Celsius of warming. It is now plausible that we stay below 2 degrees Celsius. You look at these papers, there's a range from 1.9, thank you, to 2.9, somewhere in there. So what I want to convey is that progress is possible. This transition happened because of policy that stimulated clean energy deployment, which then made it cheaper. And it's happening now increasingly because of the combination of policy and economics. And the economics of this are generational defining. Literally $100 trillion to $200 trillion of capital will turn over as we clean up our energy system. And to give you some real world present data on that, this is current and historical spending on clean energy. 2004, the world spent $32 billion a year deploying climate technology, solar and wind primarily. $32 billion is not nothing. That's a very real amount of money, obviously. In 2022, we passed $1 trillion spent in a single year. 1.1 trillion according to Bloomberg, 1.4 trillion according to the International Energy Agency. That is an enormous, enormous milestone. Two other things that are relevant here. 2022 was the first year where clean energy spending was larger than spending on fossil fuel extraction. And in 2022, solar alone, spending on solar, was higher than spending on oil extraction. So this is the progress that we're making. It is possible to make an impact. Now that doubling time is about every 4 years. If it keeps on growing at that rate, by 2030 it'll be about $4 trillion a year, one of the largest industries on planet Earth. And so let's look at where we've made the most progress, because we started off really in cleaning up our electricity supply. Electricity is about a quarter of global human greenhouse gas emissions. And this is what's happened over the last 10 years. These are charts of cost of electricity from new built solar or wind, or from a new built coal or gas plant. That's the gray band there. In 2010, when I came into this field, there was no place on Earth where solar or wind without subsidies were cheaper than power from coal or gas. Around 2015, that changed. We entered a second phase where renewables were competitive for new power in some areas. And now we're entering a third phase where in places with exceptionally good sun and wind, it is cheaper sometimes to build a new solar farm or a new wind farm than it is to keep operating an already built and paid for gas or coal plant. The clearest evidence of this, the clearest example of this, is what's happened in the cost of solar technologies. Look at the cost of solar panels. In 1975, it cost about $100 per watt of power output. This year, now, last month, we're down to about 16 cents as the global average. That's more than a 600-fold price decline. By the way, that little spike towards the end, during COVID, we had supply chain issues, we had inflationary issues, and people thought, is the era of declining cost of renewables over? No, we worked through those kinks. We still have some challenges. Wind power costs have gone up. They will come down again. And so we'll see this exponential trend in cost decline continue. And the other thing I want to communicate about this is that the deployment of clean energy and the progress we've made on it has blown past all the forecasts of official or credible forecasters. So in 2010, I came into this field. I came from tech, so I had a different perspective. The International Energy Agency put out this forecast for what would happen with the cost of solar over the next almost 40 years, by 2050. This is an exponential chart, by the way. Every tick is a doubling. I, a naive software person, said, well, I think if you just look at the charts of growth, solar costs will drop like this, about 5 times faster than what the IEA said. I was wrong. Solar costs have actually dropped like this, twice as fast as the biggest optimists in this field. And so that is what gives us some degree of hope. This also means that estimates of how fast we would deploy these technologies have been woefully short. Every year, the International Energy Agency puts out their World Energy Outlook. They put out forecasts for things like how much solar will the world deploy each year. Those colored lines are successive years of forecasts from the IEA of how much solar the world would deploy every future year. And the black line is actual growth, right? And let's update it for this year. It looks like this. In fact, I've had to update this chart 3 times this year, and it's already wrong. We're going to hit close to 400 gigawatts, so off the top of this chart. Now, we still want to move faster, but in every way, these clean energy technologies are just able to exceed what people expect. And it's not just solar. This is growth around the world of power generation from wind, from solar, electric vehicle sales, which are growing about twice the pace of solar, and battery deployment. All of these are exponentials, if you will, that are just growing without bounds. They're still at a relatively small fraction of our energy system, but their improvement in cost and their growth rate is just staggering. And it's not just solar. It's happened to a somewhat extent wind, batteries, and now hydrogen as well. And so if we zoom out and we say, what's the cost of energy from different sources? This is from a paper from Oxford last year. Across the bottom here, over a more than 100-year period, you've got the costs of oil, coal, and gas. And there's no clear trend line. They just fluctuate. They bounce up and down. Because commodities, you can get cheaper drilling and so on, but you're competing against the depletion of the resource. Whereas solar, wind, and batteries aren't commodities. They're technologies, and technologies just get cheaper over time. So this is that crossover we were talking about. And if you want to look at this in terms of deployment, this year, solar and wind were about 90% of new power added to the grid around the world. Now, we'd like it to be 200%. We'd like to be decommissioning coal plants and gas plants at an astoundingly faster rate and have all of the growth be renewables. We're not there yet, but you can see how that yellow band and that blue band have just grown over the last several years. Energy storage is the next frontier, and battery prices have dropped at a pace like solar, dropped by about a factor of 10 over the last decade. That slowdown at the very end is lithium prices going up over the last couple of years. They've fallen in half in the last 6 months. So this trend will continue as well. Batteries attached to renewable plants have a certain characteristic that I'll come back to in a sec. But I want to again show how the experts forecasted change here versus what really happened. Here's from 2013, the US Department of Energy, their forecast for how battery costs would drop. They dropped by about half over the next 40-odd years. The blue and red lines are optimists, Bloomberg and Navigant. This is what actually happened with battery prices. So again, technology costs are just decades and decades ahead of the leading forecasters. We're moving into longer duration storage. I won't dwell on this too long, but we have now dozens of startups and projects that are aiming to do 12 hours of storage, solve the day-night cycle, or longer. Multi-day storage is a technology on the frontier still, but it is coming down the pipe. Now, all of that having been said, there are still some very real challenges that we have in this transition, even in just the electricity sector. We have the problems of seasonality and weather. We have new electricity loads as we install heat pumps to heat buildings, and especially as we deploy electric vehicles, that's going to draw a lot more power. We have impacts on the grid. We have industrial decarbonization. These are all sectors that we have to work on harder. This is showing wind and solar over the continental US over the course of a year. And what you see here is, of course, solar peaks in the summer, but it's quite low in the winter. Wind peaks in winter and spring. So the system we really want to build goes beyond the borders of any one state or any one region even. We want to integrate these renewables across continent-sized areas so we can take the best wind and the best solar and put them together in sort of a harmonic symphony of renewables to meet our needs. Can we get the slides back up, please? Now, so where we are now is we're at the beginning still of this hockey stick, this S-curve. Solar and wind are about 12, 13% of electricity globally. They're more than 25% here in Minnesota. Over the next decade, driven by policy and these incredibly low prices, we're going to see them surge. The UK think tank Ember thinks they will triple in how much power they provide to the grid around the world in the next 7 to 8 years. But we will hit these challenges as we get to higher and higher penetration of renewables on the grid. And there's multiple ways to solve that. We talk about resources like clean, firm power, nuclear, these multi-day storage batteries. But by far, the simplest, most reliable, and lowest cost way to get a cleaner grid is to build out the grid, to build out more transmission that brings in the best wind and the best solar from around the world, or from around the different parts of the country, complementing one another. Now that might look daunting, but to give you a global perspective, here's the solar resource of China. In China, all the population is on the coast, on the east coast. The best sun and wind are in the interior, in the west and the northwest. So in China, you see ultra-high voltage distribution or transmission lines that go 2,100 miles and carry power from the interior to the coast. For context, in Europe, that would go from Spain to Germany, and in the US, you could take solar power from New Mexico to New York. You could bring wind and solar in and out of Minnesota, getting a cleaner grid for Minnesota and for the rest of the nation. But this is an area where, while we're making huge investments, in this area in particular, MISO announced a $10 billion transmission project last year. We are still not making progress fast enough. And the barriers to this are primarily regulatory. We know we can build transmission. We know it is cost effective, but we still have to convince people, landowners, states along the way, that it's okay to build these transmission lines to cross their property and move clean energy from place to place. If we don't build out new transmission, Jesse Jenkins at Princeton believes that 80% of the decarbonization benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act will not be achieved. So this is a vital area, and if there's one thing I'd ask you to advocate for, it's this. We have to be YIMBYs, not NIMBYs. We have to acknowledge that we have to build new infrastructure if we want to clean up our society. So that's electricity. We are making enormous progress there. The second area, of course, is transportation. And it is now clear that electrification of transport, of ground transport, is inevitable. It's no longer a question of whether it will happen, it's only a question of how fast it will happen. And it's happening at a staggering rate. This is the growth of electric vehicle sales around the world. We are now selling more than 1 million electric vehicles per month. And we've passed the peak of sales of gasoline-powered vehicles. That happened in 2017. Since then, all the growth in the automotive sector has been electric. And one thing that's true is that capital chases growth, talent chases growth. The internal combustion engine is not a sector that any large auto manufacturer is heavily investing in right now. And so we've seen EVs grow at about twice the pace of solar. And again, forecasters have missed this. Here's the Department of Energy, 2015. The red line is their forecast for how many electric cars would there be on US roads with a 200-mile range. By 2040, they forecasted 20,000 of them, right? Tesla alone is selling about 1 million cars a year. So this is about as wrong as you can be. And it will just happen faster because we're still at an early stage of electric vehicles. They're still premium products, but that is changing rapidly. And what we're going to see is that electric vehicles are just definitively going to be the cheapest option there is. And here's why. This is the engine and drivetrain of a gasoline-powered car, about 1,000 moving parts. And this is the engine and drivetrain of an electric car. Right? So there are simply simpler devices. The only reasons they've been more expensive are that they were built at smaller scale and that batteries have been expensive. And both of those are changing over time. And so in addition to the capital cost, we also see these benefits in the operating cost. The gasoline car wastes 3/4 of its energy as heat. Small engines lose a lot of heat. When you hit the brakes, it's friction. You lose that energy. The electric vehicle has super efficient electric motors, and when you brake, it sucks power back into the batteries. So what we see is that the cost of operating an electric vehicle is about 1/2 to 1/4 of what it is to operate a similarly sized gasoline vehicle. Also massive maintenance cost advantages here. So it's already the case in many parts of the world that electric vehicles from a total cost of ownership standpoint are cheaper. The blue bar is the cost of buying the vehicle, but because the cost of energy and maintenance is so much lower, the total cost is actually already lower. And by 2030, this could be in a whole new phase, where the electric vehicle will be cheaper on a walk-away basis, what you pay in cash, and remarkably cheaper to operate. And so we will see this spread into commercial vehicles, and we'll see this put more demands on the grid. If we electrify all transport in the US, it will roughly increase electricity demand in the US by about 50%. It'll save American consumers about $400 billion a year in gasoline, and it'll be about $100 billion a year in new electricity sales. But somebody has to build that grid in order for this transition to succeed. And when we think about that, there's a variety of challenges, but I'll just accelerate a little bit here. Oil is a global commodity that doesn't always help America. The people that make the most money off oil are not always our friends. But we are reaching the point where oil is nearing its peak of global demand. If you look at the different ways that we use oil, about 2/3 of them are at risk of disruption from electric vehicles and solar and so on. And we already see that electric vehicles are destroying about 1.5 million barrels a day of oil demand. That's only about 1.5%, 2%. But if EVs keep growing at this pace, we will see oil demand peak in the second half of this decade and then start to decline. And even oil majors are starting to say that. I'll close by talking about some of the unsolved challenges that we have, because we've looked at electricity and ground transport, but there's still major areas that we're just starting to work on. Building heat, of course, agriculture and deforestation, 1/4 of our global emissions. But the one that is now moving forward more rapidly than I expected is heavy industry, decarbonizing things like steel making and cement. Steel is about 7-8% of global emissions. It's about 3 times the size of all aviation, for example. And for the first time in just the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen real progress in both technology and financing to decarbonize these heavy industrial sectors. And one of the things that gets talked about the most in this is the use of hydrogen. Green hydrogen made from clean electrons to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. It's a very versatile tool. It's still very early. You hear hydrogen talked about for a lot of things that it probably shouldn't be, and we'll see some crash of that. But when you look at the ways that we can use hydrogen, we won't use it for everything. Anything that we can electrify, we will. But for things like heavy industry, making steel, perhaps making fuels to go into existing aircraft and ships, we'll see that accelerate and be an important part of the solution. This, like electrification, will further increase electricity demand. If we decarbonize using hydrogen all these other sectors, that by itself could double global demand for electricity. So again, if we want to succeed in decarbonizing, we have to build. And with that, I'll say that I continue to be an optimist because every year we make progress faster than the year before. We've seen this with consumers demanding increasingly that their companies purchase clean electricity or provide clean products, and we've seen policy momentum. We've seen momentum for a number of reasons. The war in Ukraine has accelerated Europe's decarbonization. We've seen heat pump sales double, triple, or quadruple in some European countries. In the US, of course, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which I think is still wildly underestimated in just how enormous an impact it has. This is federal projected spending on clean energy technologies, and you see this enormous growth, and this probably understates the size of the IRA. And of course, here in Minnesota, you've been leaders as well. And so thank you for amazing progress in taking action on climate change and committing to decarbonizing the grid here entirely. So is the problem solved? No, we are in a race between how fast we can innovate in both policy and technology and how fast we do damage. And we are moving faster than anyone believed we could 5 or 10 years ago, but the hour is also growing late. So we are now in a phase where we have canceled the apocalypse, most likely, but we haven't moved the needle as far down as we would like. And every 1/10 of a degree Celsius matters enormously. And so I'm honored to be here with an organization that is working to accelerate this transition. And I think all that we can do, the most important thing we can do, is continue to take action. Thank you very much.
Ramez, for that incredibly informative and wonderful, riveting presentation. Can we give him another round of applause? I don't know about you, but I could probably be in a room with Ramez for about 24 hours and soak up everything because I just learned so much. I feel more energized and excited about our future and the possibilities before us if we all pull together. I just love that someone like you, Ramez, who looks at clean energy transition on the global scale, can so clearly see how organizations like Fresh Energy are crucial to making this change happen and taking on the global climate emergency. It gives me such hope to recognize that you recognize the role that organizations like Fresh Energy play, and also many in this room play in the overall solution on the scale of this problem, and that you've taken time to be with us today. We really, really do appreciate you and the fact that Fresh Energy is such a great friend to you. So thank you so much, Ramez. Now, I am so excited to share with you a short video that I had the privilege of filming at Richfield High School a few weeks ago. A big part of my work is listening, and listening to stakeholders like you, our staff, board, donors, and important community members, our legislators, our partner organizations, and of course, young people. At the start of the school year, I was so lucky to sit down with 5 young, bright minds and listen to them talk about climate and how it's impacting their lives, and to hear their concerns about the future. And really their hope for how we can get this right and turn this around. I know you'll enjoy hearing directly from them as well. And after the video, we're going to welcome board member Ellen Palmer to the stage. Ellen is Fresh Energy's board treasurer and former executive team member of Fresh Energy. She now dedicates her time and talent as a leadership coach for purpose-driven women, a passion she and I both share. Now, let's hear from our young friends from Richfield High School Green Team. Roll the tape. My whole background has been in education, and Fresh Energy was an opportunity to answer the question that students had been sharing with me around their concerns around climate change. 57% of our kids say that they are experiencing extreme sadness around climate change. The way that you combat that is by ensuring that they have a sense of agency and that they feel hopeful that it can change. And really that's true for all of us in this room today. It is that we all feel a sense of hope and a sense of agency and a sense of optimism to be able to really move the needle forward. I'm so excited to talk to kids today about climate change and about our transition to clean energy. I hope that we'll learn from them, but that they'll also learn the adults are really trying to step up here and get some of this work done, but we have to move a lot faster.
I wanted to be a part of the discussion because it's hard for young people's voices to be heard.
Adults say they hear us, but don't do anything about the changes we want to make.
I want to bring awareness to the situation and the importance of reverting climate change.
You feel so small in a world of 8 billion people, and it's like, what could I do?
There's a lot of climate panic from most teenagers across the U.S. I see it as an opportunity for us to change for the better.
Obviously, this is a really big issue and it can be kind of scary, and I think there's been an unfair burden placed on our young people around the responsibility that's going to be needed to really move the needle on climate change. Just wondering how you all are feeling about it.
I've been affected by the smoke in the air. I've had perfectly healthy lungs, but this past year I actually had some lung problems.
I actually have asthma, so the air is something very important to everyone, and we need to take care of it.
It just makes me feel really passionate about wanting to make a change.
What about adults? Do you think we're doing enough?
They kind of wait on the younger generations to do something about it. When we speak out about it, we're not really heard or taken seriously because it's you're so young, you don't really understand. For example, Greta Thunberg did a lot of things, and it's yet there was not as much action that is wanted.
And to do something as drastic as having to have a strike about going to school, or there's been folks who have done hunger strikes because they just want everyone to feel this sense of urgency that I think young people feel.
There have been goals made by the United Nations as to where we should be. We won't meet those goals unless people realize how urgent this problem actually is.
How do you see your role and your responsibility as young people, and then how do you want to impress upon all the adults here, in this room? What messages would you have for them?
Whenever I hear or see that adults hear us and want to listen to us, that just gives me some more hope.
Donate and fund to different organizations that will make a change, and becoming a great role model and teaching your kids, your society and community that this can be done.
It might feel it's so little, but if it's multiple people are doing it, it becomes a bigger thing.
Are you guys aware that this past year, Fresh Energy worked with a number of coalition partners and our state legislature and governor to pass the 100% standard law? And it puts in new requirements by 2040 that our electric utilities decarbonize 100%. Gives us a little bit of hope that our political leaders and our coalition of nonprofits and communities and even young people have come to the legislature and given compelling testimony for us to take urgent action.
I think it's a great place to acknowledge that it's getting taken care of. Not fully, and we can still contribute to something, but it's a great start. That good news is motivating.
We also have our coal plants scheduled to close, which really makes a huge difference. We have been able to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions since 2005, 23%.
In my generation and stuff, we all feel excited and ready to jump and tackle this.
If everyone takes their actions as a community, I think we can definitely stand a chance.
If we not only do our individual part, but if we collectively work together on these tougher issues, we actually can make remarkable progress if we put our minds to it. As we grow older, we come to be a bit more wise about our decisions and our legacy. We're getting there, and I think that students need to feel a sense of hope. It's our responsibility to figure it out and to make it doable for our kids in the future.
That was so inspiring. I heard that these 5 students are here with us today. I was hoping that you'd be willing to stand up so we could recognize you. And I think I see a few other tables. If you're a student, we would love for you to stand up and be seen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. If you don't know me, my name is Ellen Palmer, and I am the treasurer of the Fresh Energy Board. But my story with Fresh Energy does not start here. I was hoping to share my story with you of how I got here. So when I was born, well, you know, I only have 5 minutes, I promise, that I'll speed it up a little bit. But when I was born, my initials were EPA, and I thought I was destined to save the planet. I really did. So when I was 11, that meant poster boards about global warming and presentations to my peers. In college, that meant being a charter member of the Environmental Studies Club at UMD, and then later going on to work at an environmental laboratory after college. Later on, I was driven to get my MBA with the hope of moving the needle on climate by changing how businesses do business. And each of those steps that I'd taken was because I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I could. So with my MBA in hand, I got a call from my mom one day, and she was so excited, and she said, "I saw this woman talk, J. Drake Hamilton, in her small community in rural Minnesota." And she encouraged me to look into working for Fresh Energy because it was such an amazing organization. So at that time, I looked into it, and it looked appealing, but I wasn't sold until I saw Jay speak for myself a few years later. And I immediately knew what my mom was talking about, and I knew I had to work there. So I was drawn to Fresh Energy because it focused on the biggest solutions, and it got shit done. And I did get that job, and every day I was there for 11 years, I knew in my heart that I was doing everything I could to mitigate climate change. And I can tell you firsthand that Fresh Energy has been a leading player in shaping and driving the clean energy transition in Minnesota and beyond since 1990. And in all 33 of those years, they have accomplished big policy wins, which are climate solutions at scale. Now, Michael Noble, yes. Michael Noble led with an inspiring strategy that will always remain in Fresh Energy's DNA. Each person there is tirelessly focused on determining what the highest lever is and pulling on that lever as hard as they possibly can. And that's why the secret of Fresh Energy's progress has been and always will be its people. The staff of Fresh Energy are the ones leading the way, working at this unknown frontier with courage and passion and drive. They are smart and savvy, and they will never give up. A few years after I left Fresh Energy, I was honored to join the board of directors and participate on the search committee for the new executive director to find the wonderful Dr. Brenda Cassellius. I knew she was the one because she knows leadership, she knows people, she knows policy, and she knows how to get shit done at scale. So if you're like me and you want to do everything you can, here is your opportunity. As a nonprofit, Fresh Energy works purely in the public interest. That's for me, for you, your families, your communities, because we are in this together. This is our cause, because together is when we can make an impact on climate change. And we all know we have to act boldly and we have to act now. So I want to invite you to join me today in making an investment in Fresh Energy. We all know breakfast is a fundraiser, so I'm here to ask you to donate generously. Your investment will allow Fresh Energy's team to accelerate the progress, taking action on climate at scale. And this tangible progress is what's going to give us the hope, the agency, and the optimism we need to make a difference. So whether you have already made a donation or had a dollar amount in mind when you came today, I'm here to encourage you to give more if you can. Because this is the time. We all know this. This is the decisive decade where we decide the future of our children and grandchildren. And like Ramaz said, quite frankly, the future of every single person in this room and everyone watching online. I ask you to make a donation that feels good to you. There is a minimum suggested donation of $125, and that is definitely going to make a difference. But we have that match on the table that Alan mentioned. If you are able to invest $250 or more, that's $250 or more, generous donors of Fresh Energy have agreed to match that. Thank you so much, match donors. Or maybe you have the ability to give 500, 1,000, or 5,000. Those gifts will also be matched today. So please make a generous donation, one that will allow you to look your loved ones in the eyes tonight over dinner and tell them that you understand the urgency and that you are doing everything you can, just like I plan to do with my kids tonight. So table captains, please pass out your pledge cards. Now is the time. And I want to personally thank all of you for being a part of the Fresh Energy community, because we can do this together. And I hope today you leave with hope, agency, and optimism. Thank you so much.
So I know that we're all busy giving, and I don't want to interrupt that, but I told you that I would be back for the dismissal. Keep talking, keep giving. You can see on the screens that there are lots of different ways to give. If you didn't come prepared this morning with your checkbook or credit card, so this could go on for the whole day. I want to just end by saying thank you to all of our speakers, to the video participants, and to all of our sponsors and table captains. And of course, thanks to all of you who are in the room and to all of you who are online. I hope you've also enjoyed the program. By showing up, you are taking meaningful action for climate change, and we are honored that you trust Fresh Energy with your support to build our clean energy future together. Together we can do what needs to be done. So captains, just a reminder to turn in the packets that you have with your donation pledges, where you picked them up. And then for everyone who's here in the room, don't forget that the Fair of the Future is open until 11 a.m. So please stick around and enjoy and learn. And thank you again, everyone, so much for being here. You're dismissed.
Hi. My name's Carolyn Heindel. I'm from Holy Angels, but today is my mom's birthday, Mary Woolen. She sponsored the Holy Angels table for today so that we could all come here. And she also has been working for most of her career in energy and helping just helping with actions and things to make the climate a better place. But yeah, so it's just super quick. It's her birthday. Where are you? She's back there. And if it would be okay if we could all just really quick sing happy birthday. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mary. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mom.
you.